It's October, and with
It is.
October comes the realization of fear. Fear of a lot of movies that come out this time of year that are pretty bad.
And great.
And I noticed a clever strategy by Disney. I thought it was bizarre that they released The Haunted Mansion in summer, but it was really all so that it could come to streaming and home video in October. Those evil geniuses. So what we're here to do, welcome to the Retro Boost podcast, hosted by myself, Mike, and my other guy here.
The redheaded dude.
Who's that guy?
Name's Tory.
I don't know. Probably. Maybe.
Probably, maybe. We're not sure yet.
We haven't figured it out. I still am on the fence. And then cameo by Miki here and there. She's being very needy today, so she'll appear here at some point. She's already trying to rip apart my computer from the backside.
Wonderful.
What we're here to do is talk about some spooky movies. October favorites. We're each gonna pick two and talk about them. So this is gonna be our first movie-centric podcast. Certainly not the last. They're not all going to be this format necessarily, but we thought this would be kind of fun to bring a couple movies each to the table, discuss them, what we like about them, etc., go back and forth on it. To decide whose picks go first, a good old-fashioned showdown of rock, paper, scissors.
Cool.
And this is going to be really interesting. So,
this is going to be
virtual
bizarre.
rock, paper, scissors. So we do 1, 2, and on the third one, then you go. So it's 4. Make sense?
Got it. So 1, 2, 3, choose.
Yeah, perfect.
Gotcha. Okay. Got
All
it.
right. 1, 2, 3, go. I can't see what
Scissors.
All right.
Oh, is it best out of? Okay.
Yeah,
got
the
it.
best out of 3. It's a tournament.
Okay,
It's a
all right,
battle
all right.
to the death. And I can't really see your picks because you're too low. So raise your hand some. You're probably cheating. You're changing it because you're out of frame.
Yeah, right.
All right. 1, 2, 3, go.
Paper.
Oh, tie. 1, 2, 3, go.
Oh gosh. This is for all of it.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, go.
Oh. Nice. Very nice.
I did the technique. I successfully
Excellent.
pulled it off. You're supposed to. The
Excellent job.
technique is that you always pick what hand would have won your opponent the previous hand. As confusing as that sounds, if you learn to master it, you will win all your games of rock, paper, scissors. And if you're up against an opponent that knows these tricks, it becomes the most intense and insane game of rock, paper, scissors you've ever had. I've gone to round 11.
The fate of the universe is at stake in a tournament like that.
It was pretty serious. All right, so I guess I'll be going first with my pick. I have a theme, which I will not reveal until my second pick. Suspense. Mainly because my first theme, which I'll also reveal at the second pick, was wildly inaccurate and very stupid. And I'm an idiot. So what I'll be doing is, it's obviously illegal / not advisable to just play movies on YouTube / the internet that you don't own. So various stills of the movie will be what goes kind of in place, which will be on camera as we discuss. Pick number 1 for me, An American Werewolf in London.
Awesome.
This was a movie that I saw probably when I was way too young, and it did give me nightmares as a kid, although not the werewolf, the crazy scene where the pig bikers break into the house and flip and murder everybody. That scene gave me nightmares. However, the werewolf kind of gives me nightmares as an adult. So An American Werewolf in London is a horror / horror comedy.
I love it.
Depending,
I don't think I've seen it. Just to start with that, so I'm excited to hear your
what.
I know. That's terrible.
It's such a movie.
I know,
All the
and
things
I
that
and
we
I
talk
consider myself like, you know, really, really experienced in this field, but I do not believe not that I can recollect anything from it. So maybe as you go through it, things will come up, and I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, I have seen that, but baseline, I don't believe that I've seen it. So
It's a very good movie. I think it's a movie that wasn't totally appreciated in its time, and it's definitely gained a following since. It's directed by John Landis, who is director of some of my favorite comedies of all time, Trading Places, Coming to America. He was also, I think, the main director for the Twilight Zone movie, which his unfortunate reputation, like he had a very big reputation hit because that was a movie that infamously killed its main star and 2 child actors in a helicopter accident. It is a horrifying story, and there's a lot of neglect and issues. So after that, he had a lot of reputation to rebuild, and jury's out on what you think about that, but it seems like he did a good job of bouncing back as far as making good movies afterward, despite that controversy. Oh my god, what the hell are you doing? So that's kind of why the comedy part of it is there, because like he started with Twilight Zone, and then he did like Trading Places, I think was the next thing he did that like did really well. And like with any director, when like you're a nobody and you have a hit and now you're a somebody, you could like kind of get away with doing like whatever you want. Like if you're the guy, like let's take James Cameron, like he makes Titanic and it makes $22 trillion cadillion dollars. If he then tells Fox like, I want to make a movie about blue cat people, like they can't say no because of what he just did previously, right? It was kind of like that with John Landis. He wanted to make this werewolf movie, and he wrote the screenplay like 10 years prior, apparently. So it's a bit of a passion project. But since he was known for comedies, they kind of wanted him to do like more comedy stuff. Like they wanted it to either be one or the other, not both. And they even wanted Dan Aykroyd to like. They wanted to take like a lot of his like usual people he works with and put them in that movie, which would have fundamentally changed it. He decided to go with mostly nobodies in these roles. I guess to give it more of like an everyman kind of thing. But largely a very good movie. Its main thing with horror fans is its effects. It definitely follows like the Jaws rules, where like you really don't see the werewolf much at all until toward the very end. But like, damn, that werewolf prop is the stuff of actual nightmares.
Man, it's pretty ironic that you bring up Jaws. I'm just gonna make that comment and move on.
Your pick is Jaws. Spooky. I don't really think that Jaws is a Halloween movie or an October movie. That's I mean, it's a monster film, so that would work.
It's a monster flick. Therefore, for me at least, it certainly goes in the category. But continue. I didn't mean to throw us off. Oh, the one point that I wanted to make. It's so funny that you brought up James Cameron and how prior success can allow for future risks. Pretty much the Terminator to Aliens 2 thing, that's literally what that was. Like, they weren't so sure about him heading Aliens 2, but when Terminator came out and it was a huge hit, Fox was like, do it. Like, we're okay with it.
Yeah.
And that's, it just speaks to the point that you tried to make.
Definitely. It's a good movie. I think, not that I ever, like, professional movie critics tend to annoy me more than I take them seriously, but this is one instance where I think Roger Ebert, like, sums it up kind of perfectly. Like, he didn't totally like the movie. His main complaint is that it doesn't spend a lot of time developing characters, and that's definitely true. It is not a movie that has, like, a lot of character development, if any. It's kind of weird. It really focuses on, like, the curse.
Cool.
So, like, basically the super brief kind of summation here, not to go into spoilers, but just what you would read in the back of the box, basically.
Sure.
2 vacationing Americans are making their way through the moors in, I think that's northern England. They're crossing the moors, and they find themselves in like a creepy tavern, and the townsfolk are very obviously aware that there's like a werewolf in the area, but like none of them want to like say that out loud. They're all like really, I guess, embarrassed about it, because that'd be pretty embarrassing if there was like a werewolf going around cutting people's heads off at random. Like,
yeah,
dude, the town meeting's here to get roads approved, or nuts. So
the economy is just going to take a huge hit.
yeah, you gotta have the werewolf budget in there, like, to deal with that problem. So like they're all like afraid of it / don't want to talk about it, and it weirds out our two travelers. I think their names are David and what's the other guy's name? David's the main character. I forget the other guy's name, which is a shame because like he's actually really cool.
Are they played by anybody that I would know?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe.
Gotcha.
It's hard to say because they were definitely nobodies at the time.
Gotcha.
But they go and they continue traveling in the night, despite the protests of one of the people in the bar, who isn't a total just jerk for letting him leave. Although she doesn't complain until they're already gone. She's like, "Well, go get him, go bring him back. That was a bad idea." And then they get attacked, and I think. It building up kind of the environment, the creepy scenery, and like they can hear the werewolf kind of in the distance, and they can hear when it's closer. It's scary. Like, it builds tension. The movie isn't really ever that scary again. That first scene is very intense if you haven't seen it before, but it doesn't like want to fully go into that for its entire runtime. It kind of deviates and becomes like a weird, like, artsy slasher film.
Cool.
Because once the attack happens, and David is now, he's got the curse of the werewolf. A huge chunk of the movie is like his psychological dealings of having like these night terrors, and he's seeing his dead friend. His dead friend is a recurring character in the movie, appearing as like
That's
a ghost. That's the comedy stuff. Like, that's the part that like was the comedy, because like there's a lot of dry humor and like funny sayings between them when they're interacting. And then toward the end, he transforms, and that's where this film has a big following from like Hollywood effects lovers, because the transformation is incredible. It's all practical effects. I mean, this is like 1981, I think. It's insane, like him transforming into the werewolf.
Golden era.
Yeah,
that's great.
It's incredible. And then he prowls London. And that's what kind of becomes a slasher film. There is a deleted. It's kind of like. I found myself making a similar complaint about this movie that I did with the 2014 Godzilla movie. That movie also like did not show Godzilla a lot, and there is like one scene in that I wish was longer. It's when they introduce Godzilla. You see him for the first time, and he's facing down one of the two monsters, and then it cuts away. And I was always like, I wish they just showed that fight scene. It would have fundamentally changed that movie. American Werewolf in London is the same thing. His first night as a werewolf prowling the streets, you never see him like on screen killing anybody. It's just kind of building up suspense, and then people get attacked. And I found out that one of the scenes was actually filmed, and you would have seen him, like the werewolf rather, like just shredding some dudes. And I was like, I look back and I think, man, that probably should have been in there. But I think they didn't want to lean too far in either direction. Yeah. Is it a horror film or is it a comedy? They wanted to keep it kind of definitely more toward horror, but not like all the way, which is what would have been if they had done stuff like that. Largely, though, very good movie. It has a very intense third act. That's kind of when the werewolf itself isn't showing up until pretty late in the movie. That's the one detraction. But once it does, it's awesome. Even though you don't see much, the final chunk of it, it makes up for lost time and then some. It's insane.
Nice.
They do take full advantage of their setting as well, even though it takes a while to build to it. Because you don't really see a lot of like monster films like that are like just in a city with like witnesses beyond the main characters.
Sure.
And that's what's kind of cool too. So American Werewolf in London, definitely a scary movie, holds up really well. The effects are done in a way that kind of makes them pretty timeless. There's really nothing to complain about with it. If it's got any flaws, they're flaws that you'd make as a movie critic and probably not as a watcher, although they do make sense, since it focuses more on like the curse and the terror of it than like the characters growing.
Sure.
There's no arc, like, like they're, that's the problem. Does it need that? Probably not.
So, is there like a villain, or would the where like I would assume in a film like that there would be like maybe like a cop or someone trying to hunt the werewolf
Jack.
down.
So Jack is the friend. So the villain is the main character.
Okay,
So,
I
like,
wasn't sure
that's-
how they would play that. Gotcha.
Like, he's obviously
makes
not
sense.
like doing this because he wants to kill people. Like, they make it very clear that, like, when you turn into a werewolf, like, you are not you anymore. Like, you are the
Gotcha.
beast. The beast has nothing other than murder on its mind. So Jack, as the ghost, is trying to tell David to kill himself. He's like, you can't let this happen, because if you do, you're gonna kill countless people. So like that's a part of the movie, is that, like, you know, David, you're gonna do bad things, and it sucks to hear this, but like you gotta kill yourself. So like he is the villain and the protagonist. And like his interactions with Jack's makeup is also incredible, because he's like a torn apart corpse when he's appearing to David. And
Very
some
cool.
of the stuff is insane. I heard that they cut out a scene where like he eats toast and like it falls out of his throat. It's like ripped open.
That's awesome.
Like that would have been pretty wicked.
Right.
And like every time he appears to David, he's more and more decayed. It's like the makeup is getting more intense with every appearance he has. There's other characters too. Like he has like a romantic fling with the nurse that takes care of him. Her name is Alex. And then there's like the lead doctor is like trying to figure out if David's crazy or if there is a werewolf. And the funny thing is, he kind of ends up right in the middle, because he finds out that there is like definitely some kind of crazy conspiracy in that small town. He thinks that they're concealing some kind of like murderer, not that there's a werewolf. He thinks that he believes that they believe it's a werewolf, but he won't like make that leap. But it's interesting that he at least goes that far. Because, like,
Sure.
the cliche is that they normally just don't believe him, period. So
100%.
it's refreshing in that sense. The guy takes it seriously, which is admirable for his character. That's kind of the subplot, is basically the doctor kind of trying to figure that stuff out, all while David's dealing with his stuff.
Nice.
Largely, though, very good movie. Super like it. Watched it many times. It's scared me as a kid, and I love it as an adult for its effects.
I do not believe that I've seen it, so I definitely need to add that to my list. American Werewolf in London, right?
Yep.
Very cool. Very cool.
What?
So my first pick, we actually sort of went to it a minute ago. I'm going with one of my favorite creature feature films of all time. And that's going to be Jaws 1, the 1975 Steven Spielberg film. It's just timeless. It's a film that I could watch over and over again. The way that it's shot, the way that the story unfolds, the way that there are so many layers to it. It's just one of those films that you could watch, and you will constantly see new stuff. I've watched that movie more times than I could count, and I still feel like there are tiny little subtle things that I catch that I feel like I haven't seen before. One thing that the film does just absolutely incredibly well is it builds suspense without really needing to do much. Whether it's with the incredible John Williams score, or if it's with the beginning scene when really all you see is the woman kind of thrashing about.
Her name is Christy. She exists.
Her name is Christy. Very nice. You're totally right. Good on you. That's something that I didn't know unless I watched the film like an hour ago.
I know too much about that movie, and I would say that now, and I'm probably going to screw up a ton of things after I made that claim. But I had to do a bunch of homework on it for a video I did for the channel like 2 years ago.
Well, then we're going to have some great dialogue, because I absolutely adore the film. But what I was saying about building suspense without really doing much, and the film does this tons of times. It could be the part in the beginning with Christy, or it could be the part with the dog, Pippet, I believe is the dog's name. where the owner of the dog is calling out to him, and all you see is the stick, and the assumption is that there's a shark in the water, and it cuts back to a bunch of people swimming, and it's just one of the many times in that film where they build a sense of suspense and dread and fear without really doing much at all. Whether it's those points or it's the sort of political part with the mayor and how he's not really allowing Brody to really do what he needs to do, and it's kind of Chief Brody's sort of like defiant sense of duty to protect the citizens. They go back to that quite a few times. They do in the beginning, then of course they do several more times throughout the film. But it's just the home life of Chief Brody as well. They cut back to that a lot. A lot of scenes with him and his wife, him and his kids. They're all done just incredibly well. And there's just so many things about that film that I could really point to that are just so great and timeless. And it's to me, it's just one of the greatest films of all time, really.
It's a fantastic movie. It holds up exceedingly well, even with the effects not being as great in comparison to some other horror movies that are similarly old. Off the top of my head, stuff like Alien and then American Werewolf in London, The Thing, The Blob.
Yep.
Like, these are all older movies with practical effects that have aged very well, notwithstanding blue screen stuff, but the props themselves. And, like, the Jaws prop is a little weak by today's standards, but you can still totally immerse yourself and, like, forget about that. What?
100%. And I think that's one of the strengths of the film is the shark doesn't always look great, but that's okay. There are so many things aside from that the film does do really well, and the few times that they really do go all in with a practical effect kill, they completely slay it. The scene with the Kittner boy who ends up getting killed really from that point on sets the tone for the entire film. Just devastating to watch.
I just had to double check because I wasn't positive. So you just okay. So like the Scoutmaster guy gets his leg torn off, and we see the severed leg underwater. The Kittner boy. You call him the Kittner boy. That's what the mayor called him. The Kittner boy.
That's why I call him that.
Alex
I don't want to see the Kittner boy spill out all over the dock.
Yeah. Blood fountain in the water. Rated PG.
Oh, man. I know. Isn't that nuts? That was in my notes,
I know
too.
why. I can tell you why. It's because it has those elements, but it also does not really have much of any profanity. So I think that helped them, like, kind of keep it like that. Like, hey, it's this crazy, horrible, scary movie, but like no one really says any bad words, so it's okay, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's just the scene with, I think Alex Kittner is his full name.
Yes.
Him, the scene with the chief or whatever, the guy who gets his leg bit, that to me is the best practical effect, aside from maybe Quint later on in the film. But up until that point, I think that's probably the best kill in the film. The shot where you see the shark turn his head and he's like right below the water, and then he moves and then you see the guy go beneath the water. To me, that scene is just incredible, and it's so good and it looks so good. It kind of speaks to, like, sometimes they miss the mark on the shark and he doesn't always look great. That is a scene where it looks incredible, and it looks better than some films that are shot today, really.
Oh yeah, when it's underwater coming at them, like, it looks really good. And that's them gradually scaling up to the full reveal, because you got nothing, then you got a partial look. It's great progression.
100%.
Have you ever skimmed through the book?
I have not. I have not skimmed through the book. There are tons of creature feature or horror films that have been turned into, or that were books and were turned into films. and I adore the films, and I can say that like Jurassic Park, I know that I would enjoy that book. Silence of the Lambs, I would enjoy that book.
You wouldn't enjoy Jaws. No one enjoyed Jaws.
You don't think so? I think we discussed this.
Steven Spielberg didn't even like Jaws, the book. It's way different. Like, it's the same general scenario, but like so many of the things are different in a way that makes them worse. The characters are worse. Like, none of them are likable. They're all kind of jerks. Matt Hooper has like an affair with Brody's wife. The mayor doesn't want to open the beaches not because of the summer economy taking a hit, which is like a totally logical reason and motivation for him as the leader of their town. Like, yeah, it's a bad call, but it also makes sense. Like, you can understand why he's doing that, right? Like, you don't agree with it, but you get it. In the book, it's like some kind of mob scheme to like control property prices. And if he closes the beach, it lowers the property prices, and then the mob's gonna want to like kill him or something. So like it's really weird. It's like more complicated than it needed to be.
Nice.
So Steven Spielberg's joke about the book is that the shark is the most likable character, and the shark has no character. So
that's hilarious.
The shark just is, and it's the best character in the novel.
Right. But going back to the film, like some of the things that make it so good are the supporting cast, and Richard Dreyfuss just absolutely slays his role in that film. He does such a great job. He brings this like comedic element to the film, and a serious element too. But he's just, and I'm so glad he survives because in the book he dies. But
true, yeah, he goes down in the shark tank, and that's where he dies in the book, I think. Yeah.
But so great in the film. The way that character works so well with kind of the way that Chief Brody is. The fact that Chief Brody is like scared of the water. It's just there are just so many elements to that film that are ironic and funny and not funny at all, and it's just got so many elements to it that are great.
Okay. Awesome. If you haven't seen Jaws, what the hell is wrong with you? Go see Jaws. Its 50th anniversary, I think, is coming up too, so that'll be fun. 50 or 60 is one of those two. Will be coming up soon. So look forward to another re-release.
A small funny fact about that film is the first time Spielberg heard John Williams' score, he laughed and did not think it was any good, which is so funny because maybe one of the more iconic like tidbits of sound, like the dun 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 dun, like so many things have pulled from that, and it's just funny that one of the greater minds in all of film wasn't a fan of it, but at some point he must have allowed it to be in his film, and it turned out to be one of the greater pieces of audio, in film today. But yeah, Jaws, definitely probably like one of my top 20 films of all time for sure. Regardless of the genre, there's a handful of films that I could watch every day and be completely okay with it, and Jaws certainly sits as one of those films for sure.
The last thing I'll say is that it's funny, I never really associate this with like this time of year, as far as like a horror movie. It is also worth noting, and this is obviously very common knowledge, but it was the first ever, it's considered the first summer blockbuster, because it was released in the summer. I think it was like the first movie ever to breach like 100 million in its release window, so it became the first summer blockbuster. It's also worth noting that it was one of the first movies, if not the first movie, to pioneer the idea of releasing like everywhere at the same time, which was not like super common. You would typically have like, they're going to premiere the movie in certain cities in California, and if it does well, okay, we're going to Alabama next week and Florida the next week. That's what they would do to avoid loss, because you don't want to pay to release it everywhere and then it totally bombs. So they released it everywhere against advice from certain people, and it panned out really well. Totally not the case. with
Right.
the next pick that I have.
So just one more thing about Jaws, and then we can move on to the next. If you could pick a favorite scene in that film, what would it be? For me, it would be the table talk scene on the boat in the third act of the film, when they all discuss their scars. I just think that scene, it feels like, it's so funny because they're not all like they're not three friends, but it feels like three friends that are just kind of shooting it back and just chatting, and it's just for that sort of a film to have a scene like that, I thought it was just totally brilliant.
For me, it's funny you say that. My mind actually went there first too.
And that makes total sense. It is so good. The lighting, the way it's shot, the way the dialogue is, the way they each tell their stories, it's incredible. It's so good.
Well, I can tell you this much. So when Quint tells that like terrifying story of the USS Indianapolis,
oh yeah,
I did a book report on that story that he's referring to, inspired by my interest in the topic from that movie scene. Terrifying ordeal.
Oh, 100% terrifying. Yeah,
his stuff is not really exaggerated all that much that he talks about in that scene.
Right.
It's pretty bad.
Right. Oh yeah.
Being eaten. What are you trying to eat?
Kitty.
So my next pick, my theme was going to be horror in the Highlands, but the problem is Miracle Werewolf in London is not in the Highlands.
Sure.
So my new theme is werewolves. So my second pick, quite the opposite of a summer blockbuster, because I think this movie premiered on TV. I think it was made for TV. Pretty sure it was. Dog Soldiers.
Oh, I knew it, dude! I knew you were gonna go with that for one of them. I knew it.
So
Still haven't seen it. Terrible. I know. I'm writing it down.
Oh, God. Mickey, chill. So Dog Soldiers, I forget the director's name, but he would go on to direct a couple episodes of Game of Thrones in the first season and season 2. Somewhere around there. Like the good seasons. Prior to when it takes a turn and fans are like, what's going on here?
Hollywood.
Dog Soldiers is the story of soldiers that go on an operation in the Highlands, and they get attacked by werewolves. And they end up holed up in this house, and they're fighting off the werewolves, much like Jaws and others. It does a good job of like kind of withholding, just showing you all this stuff out of the gate. You only get like glimpses of the werewolves, but when you do see them, again, the practical effects are like a clear step above what they needed to do with that movie. Considering I'm pretty sure it was a made-for-TV movie that like premiered on the Sci-Fi Channel, they put a lot more effort into it than they needed to, and it's awesome. Very, very good. Like, it starts off kind of weird because like it's mostly daytime, but then like once they're in the house and they're like kind of holed up and they're really fighting for their lives, it's a pretty scary setting, and like they're in trouble, and like you can't help but like feel this pressure the whole time because you're like, what are they gonna do? Like, what can they do? Nothing. And like there's this dread that's like with you the whole time you're watching it. Very good movie. It makes me think of Call of Duty for some reason when I'm watching it. I know that one of the main actors in it was also in Equilibrium. I think he played the main bad guy in Equilibrium. I'm trying to think if that was his character or not, but they're kind of connected in that way, I guess. But like, it's a really fun, like, stupid movie that's like a lot, like, just a good time. It's just like the werewolf effects are so good, and it makes the decision. I think it's a very smart decision. They decided this like early on when they were making it and drafting it. Most of the time, werewolf movies are about like the "woe was me, I'm cursed" element, much like American Werewolf in London is. The bulk of it is like the horrors that he's going through prior to his transformation, and then like dealing with the realization of what he's done after the first night. Like, that's the bulk of the movie. Dog Soldiers is like the total opposite. The werewolves themselves are just monsters. Like they don't have anything else going for them other than that. But it makes them like super scary. And there's like a couple of twists here and there, like with the movie. The main twist that I don't think is like a super big spoiler. The house that they're holed up in is the house the werewolves live in when they're not werewolves. So it's
Cool.
like you're just double screwed because like this is their home, like that you've invaded to defend yourself in. So it's got a lot going for it.
That's a great twist.
Yeah, it's a cool movie. Like I like it a lot. It held up surprisingly well, although it's definitely not perfect. I like it. It's just like there's so many things about it that are like you think wouldn't work or like wouldn't hold up, but since they did just like put in that little bit of extra effort, it just like elevates it to like another experience. Basically, like the super basic gist is that you're the main character you're following. He wants to be part of this like special forces unit, but he fails their stupid, insane test where they want you to just shoot a dog for no reason at the end of the obstacle course. And he's like, I'm not going to do that. And they're like, well, you're fired. So then he goes on this mission afterward, and they're out there, and he bumps into that team, only it's just the guy that fired him is the only survivor. And they were out there, apparently, because they were trying to catch a werewolf. And the guy's main team, they were supposed to be the bait, because they're viewed as expendable. But the A team got like ripped apart first, so now they're all trying to survive together. So the villain is kind of like that jerk commander guy that wanted him to kill the dog. Kind of becomes like the unstable element in their group as they're trying to survive. So it's simple but effective, and like the simpleness I think is one of its strengths that makes it much more enjoyable. And then again, the werewolf effects are so damn good. Like they are scary looking when you do see them up for real.
I've seen stills from the film before, and those werewolves look terrifying.
They're good. They're a good blend of like everything you think of. Because American Werewolf in London, the werewolf is a wolf. It's just a big, scary damn wolf. It's kind of like the Never-Ending Story wolf creature. Like, it's kind of like that. But the Dog Soldier ones are more like what most adaptations do with the idea. They're bipedal, they're large, but like they have the wolf face and like the eyes, the teeth. Everything about it is just so scary. Like the few times you see them, there's like one really, like I think my favorite shot is when they're in this hallway, and then you see like two of them, and like one of them like turns toward and like starts to run down this hallway. It's scary as hell. It's terrifying. I don't know if like the silver thing is like a huge deal. It seems like you can shoot and kill them in that movie. That's also kind of typical though for some horror movies to just kind of disregard the conventions in favor of just bloodshed. I know that like Monster Squad, which is getting a 4K release soon, very famously has kids stick a pack of dynamite in the Wolfman's pants and they just blow him to pieces. But then that movie, you have to kill him with silver. Even though they blew him up, he can like reassemble himself. It's fantastic. If you haven't seen that movie, go see Monster Squad. That was my backup pick, just in case you happen to pick one of these. Monster Squad's incredible. But that doesn't seem to happen in Dog Soldiers. When you shoot a werewolf's head freaking clean off, it seems like they're dead for good.
Right.
Same for American Werewolf in London, actually. The silver isn't even a part of that movie at all. Like, the mythos beyond just how the curse works is, like, the only part of it. So it's very grounded. Both movies are very grounded. Like, they're not super campy or silly when it comes to the horror aspect. So, Dog Soldiers, definitely recommend. It's a fun, obscure little horror movie. I used to watch the Sci-Fi Channel all the time as a kid. That's where it debuted, and it would get rerun from time to time. And I happened to see it at some point after it originally aired, because I wouldn't have seen it when it first came out. That was like 2001, 2002, somewhere around there. I would have seen it much later as a rerun. I did manage to reacquire it in the form of a Blu-ray like 3 or 4 years ago, and watched it again as an adult, and like it held up and then some. I loved it. It was really, I was engaged. is like as kind of low budget and weird as the first chunk of it is. It really settles into itself once they get to that house and becomes really good.
Nice. So before we get to my next pick, when I think of kind of like a werewolf film, now this is a really obscure, weird film, but it's called Waxwork or Waxworks, one of the two. There's a scene with a werewolf where totally practical effects, where he literally rips a dude in half, and it's really, really cool. So check that out. Yeah, it's like a crazy wax museum where you can step into the exhibits and it transports you to like what's going on there. There's a mummy one, there's a vampire one, there's a werewolf one. It's a really obscure, weird film, but there are some great practical effects. There's one scene when a mummy steps on a dude's head and just like tin cans the guy's head. It's really cool, but in totality, that film is pretty poor, but there are certainly some moments that are great. And I go back to the werewolf scene where he whips the dude in half. Really, really cool. Was there anything else you wanted to say about Dog Soldiers, or were you ready to move on to my final pick?
Not about dog soldiers, but I will say, going back to American Werewolf in London, when it does kind of the equivalent scene of like Jaws, when the counselor in the boat gets killed, the partial reveal, basically.
Sure.
You have no monster, person dies, partial reveal, person dies, and then full monster reveal. That's the formula that all these movies, for whatever, use. Jaws didn't invent it, by the way. I watched a movie called Them, which I've seen 100 times. It's about killer ants. Same formula, and that was like 15 years before Jaws. So it goes way back. But the partial reveal in American Werewolf in London is phenomenal. It's a chase scene in a subway, some dude taking the tram or the metro super late at night for some reason, and like he's in there and you hear the growling in the subway tunnel.
Oh,
the
that's
suspense
awesome.
is building. He thinks it's a prank. He sees it. We don't see it, but he sees the monster, and he's like, oh my god. And he's running for his life, and he trips and he falls. He's on this escalator moving up, and then from the perspective of the top of the escalator, you see the werewolf come into the frame at a distance, and like, damn, man. Like, even though it's super far away and you can't see it, you can really take it in, and you're like, holy shit.
That's sick.
Really effective. So let's hear
Very
what your second pick is.
All right, so my second pick is my favorite film ever made.
Whoa!
It's a film that I kind of saw later on in life. I think I saw it when I was really young, but it didn't really grab me just because of my age at the time. But in my adult life, I saw this film and immediately got attached.
High School Musical 3.
You got it, man. Zac Efron is my guy. No, Silence of the Lambs, as a matter of fact, is my pick. It is my number one top favorite film of all time, regardless of genre. I think it is a perfect film from beginning to end. The way that it's shot, the way that the OST blends into the film, the cast is just insane. The story, of course, it's based on the Thomas Harris book, but there are so many funny things about that film that weren't supposed to work as well as they did, and somehow everything just fell into place, and it created this just incredible film. The director, Gene Hackman, was supposed to direct the film, but after reading the book, thought that it was too dark for him. So Orion ended up going with Jonathan Demme, who had only done comedies before that. So you give a guy who had done comedic films the reins to make a film like this about this incredibly dark story about this serial killer that is trying to wear women's skin and keeps them beneath his house, and the the death's head moth that he plants in, the women that he kills. It's so dark, and the elements to it are so grotesque. The Buffalo Bill character played by Ted Levine is just so menacing and disturbing, and it's just such a dark film with these character elements to it. The dynamic between Clarice and Hannibal is just incredible. The way that dialogue works, those scenes between the two of them are just, to me, some of the greatest scenes in all of cinema. The way that they're shot, the way that the dialogue works, the way that Jonathan kind of allowed them to be creative. Multiple times in the film, Anthony Hopkins kind of added things that was kind of his own unique twist that just turned out to just elevate the film. The way that there are very, very subtle nods to women's empowerment in the very beginning of the film. She's an FBI trainee. She gets in the elevator full of men. There's like 20 dudes in there, and she gets to the top floor, and she's the only one still in that. And it's tiny little nods like that just really elevate the film and make it, in my opinion, the greatest movie of all time. Like I said, I could watch it every day. I have dissected that film so much that there are just so many tiny elements that just make it so creative. And just like Jaws, it's one of those films that you could watch 80 times, and that 81st time you'll say, did I see that before? I'm not sure that I pieced that. It's just incredible. And if you haven't seen the film, I highly encourage you to sit on the couch, turn it on, and watch the film from beginning to end. And it is just absolutely incredible.
I think I've only ever seen the third act of that movie.
It begs to be watched. It is absolutely insane. And yeah, it's so good. Just everything about the film, the relationship between Crawford and Clarice is really good. The way that Ardelia and Clarice, their friendship works throughout the film, and they go back to that more than once, is really, really great. Like I said, the subtle nods to women's empowerment is just incredible. The film came out in 1991, so it's certainly not, like a modern film or anything, but it's so good. I could talk about the film all day, really. It's so good. I think it would have been
better if the elevator scene, she did what happens in Captain America: The Winter Soldier,
where she fist fights all of them.
Well, she's like, before we do this, does anyone want to get out? And then she just slays all of them, and then that's why she's the only one at the top, because they had to fight for it. But she wins.
Yeah. But the film is riddled with really, really tiny scenes like that that are just great, and they make you think. Of course, the way that Hannibal is played, it's a shame, because I actually don't think that Anthony Hopkins portrayed the character the same again. If you watch
there's a sequel,
Red Dragon,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's a prequel. And then Hannibal is post Silence of the Lambs. But either way, Anthony Hopkins, you just need to watch the films, but he doesn't portray the character the same. I don't know if that's because of the dialogue, or because of the scenes, or just because of how he was asked to play the character, but it's just not the same. It's kind of hard to explain that, but the character is just portrayed so incredibly brilliantly well in Silence of the Lambs that to be able to kind of recreate that, I kind of compare it to Jurassic Park 1 to Jurassic Park 2 with a Jeff Goldblum's character. Like, you can't play that same character twice. Like, that is not a leading man character. That is a supporting cast character. And that's what makes Ian Malcolm so insanely good in Jurassic Park 1, is because the makeup of that character is not a leading man. So forcing him into that role in Jurassic Park 2 is why I think Jurassic Park 2 is really not that great. But it just kind of goes back to what I'm saying, where like Hannibal and Red Dragon kind of force Hannibal to be a different part of the film, and I just don't think it works as well as the jail scene in the beginning of the film, or the scene when in the third act when he's behind those bars and he's got all of the case file notes, and just when he breaks out, it's just incredible. Like, just every scene has meaning. Each line of dialogue is impactful. It's so good. Like, it has to be watched. So I highly encourage you one day to sit down and watch the film in its entirety.
Well, I'm gonna have to, because I don't own it, so gotta get those stills from somewhere.
Well, there you go.
Don't have a choice.
Nice.
Freaking Daredevil back here. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've seen the third act. I remember seeing like the end of it and being enthralled. And I've seen countless like parodies and things. Like South Park did a whole thing where it was like the officers trying to find out who like TP'd a house with toilet paper, and there's like this notorious toilet paper guy in prison, and he's Hannibal. He's like a smart talking. He's just a kid, but like he talks like Hannibal. But it's all about toilet paper.
Sure.
I've seen tons of things. I've even seen I think I even saw like a review or something, a discussion of some kind on Red Dragon at some point. I'm like aware of that movie.
It's good, but it's just both Red Dragon and Hannibal, in my opinion, don't come anywhere near the heights of Silence of the Lambs as far as the way the film, just in its entirety.
Gotcha. Definitely something that I'll be checking out. I mean, I've been meaning to, because I know that it's like stupid good.
Well, and one scene that I want to point out that really, when I saw it in my adult life, it just totally blew my mind as far as how brilliant the film is. And if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil the entire thing for you, but they do sort of a bait, and anybody who has seen the film is going to know exactly the scene that I'm referring to. But they do like a bait and switch scenario where the viewer thinks that you're about to see one thing, and then they completely flip the script in a minute, and the viewer immediately gets this sense of, oh no, that is really, really not good. I wonder how she's going to deal with this. And it's just brilliantly done. But yeah, that's Silence of the Lambs, man. That's my pick, and my favorite film of all time.
Of all time, says the man who hasn't seen Dog Soldiers yet. So
that's true.
Calm down. Oh man, I will say that I surprisingly enjoyed watching them again. The Ant movie that like has the same formula as all these other movies. I thought it was really funny that it was obviously made before there was a lot of understanding of how ants are, because there's like all kinds of like little moments where you're like, that's not how that works.
Black and white, right? There's no color in that movie. Yeah,
no, it's black and white. I watched a whole bunch of black and white movies recently. Black and white,
cool.
like horror creature features. Them and like The Thing from Another World, the giant
creature
claw.
from the Black Lagoon.
Not recently, but I have seen it. The giant
That's
claw,
filmed at
really
Wakulla Springs, which was like 45 minutes away from where I grew up.
Oh, you are the creature from the Black Lagoon.
I am.
You're the Gill Man.
right?
Yeah.
That's funny.
But I did subject myself to the Giant Claw, which is a bizarre film that is like so. God, the monster is like so ridiculously stupid looking, but the film takes itself so unbelievably serious. It is like an insanity test watching that movie.
Nice.
They committed, but not in
Me
a way
and,
that worked.
Me and Beth watched Skeleton Key today, and if you haven't seen Skeleton Key, I recommend that film as well. It's very, very good. Has a wonderful twist to it, and the environment is just kind of different than it's a very unique film in its approach. But Skeleton Key is really, really good.
I haven't even heard of that. That just comes out new?
No, it's I'm not sure when it came out, but it's definitely not new. But it's very good. Very, very good. Has one of the better twists in the genre, I would say. It's really good.
Is it, you said Skeleton Key, my mind first went to, it was like Insidious Chapter 4 with like the key fingered demon.
Yeah, Last Key. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen it. Well, no, we've seen Last Key. The newest one is Red Door, right?
The newest one is Red Door.
Yeah.
And I heard the Red Door is bad.
Yeah. The only Insidious I like is the first one.
Yeah. The Last Key had me like wishing for what could have been, which there's like two moments where the character seems like they have a really good opportunity to just sock that demon right in the face. And I was like, I want to see that happen.
Sure.
Because it's in the trailers. There's like a jump scare where like it comes out of his chest right at Lin Shaye, and I was like, just punch it!
Punch it right in the face.
Just right in the nose, like a shark. Just like, no, bad shark. And then it just goes away. And the movie could have been over. Who knows?
That's funny.
The road not traveled. So there's our two October picks. I was not expecting you to break out from the golden chest your favorite movie of all time.
Man, when I get told that I get to pick two horror, suspense, thriller, whatever you want to call it, films, whenever I get the chance to sit down and talk about Silence of the Lambs, I'm never going to pass that up. So as soon as you gave me the call and said, hey, this is what I'd like to do, what do you think? Silence of the Lambs was instantly in that list because I was like, yeah, I'm not going to miss that opportunity.
My favorite movie of all time, currently at least, well, it has been for a while. I mean, this always could change. You never know when the next thing will come along. But currently it's Ed Wood, which is the Tim Burton biopic of Edward D. Wood Jr., Johnny Depp, and all kinds of other stars and the regulars within the Tim Burton universe. Really like that story. I was like into filmmaking when I was younger, and much like Ed Wood's movies, my movies were bad. So there's like a part of it where I'm like, yeah, I get it. It sucks to suck. But the man never gave up until he kind of did. But for a while there, he was trucking along, and it's a very good movie. It's also very horror themed because Ed Wood pretty much exclusively made like weird movies / horror movies. His two most famous movies are horror sci-fi B movies. They're both pretty good watches, honestly. They can be very much enjoyed, ironically. But Ed Wood, the movie by Tim Burton and gang, is a fantastic film. It's also black and white, so that it like fits within its time because it takes place in like the late 40s, 50s. So it's atmospheric, and Johnny Depp's just great in the role. Everyone's great. That's my favorite movie currently.
Nice.
Has been for a very long time. I've just loved that movie. But yeah, that's I when I thought of October movies, like my mind went to things like The Thing, Aliens, the go-to creature features. But then I was like, oh, you know what I've been thinking about a lot lately? Dog Soldiers.
Well, yeah, and one of the things that I knew would be funny about sitting down and doing this, because we didn't pre-screen these at all. We had no idea what we were about to come up with, but yeah. I knew that what we were both going to bring was going to be very different and I turned out to be right, which is great.
Yeah, you brought critically acclaimed classics, and I brought like cult garbage.
That's all good, man. We all have our flavors, you know.
I mean, I did watch. So the funny thing about American Werewolf in London is I watched that again with my parents, and
Nice.
like it held both of their attention the whole way through.
I was just gonna ask, how close to the TV did your dad stand?
All right, so my dad has this thing where if he's got his work all done and he can like give his attention to the movie, if it's like really hooked him, at some point he's gonna be like standing up in front of it because he'll get up to like pet the cat or something, and that's what gets him close to the TV. And then if he's like enjoying it, he'll be like up in front of the TV, like freaking 2 feet away, arms crossed or something, just watching it. Now that didn't happen that night because he was still doing work and stuff, but you know his attention was still there here and there. The more impressive feat is that my mom stayed for the entire thing. That is
awesome.
She does not have a stomach for like anything other than like the Hallmark Channel. Like you never catch her watching like horror movies or creature features or anything like that ever. But it kept her interested, I guess. I think it's because it's so sparing with like the horror stuff. Like, there's these weird, creepy night terror scenes that he has, and then there's the werewolf attack in the beginning, and then the stuff in the end, but it's, like, so infrequent that, like, you can almost get tricked into watching this weird little romantic comedy movie between David, this guy that suffers from night terrors, and Alex, the nurse, taking care of him. And, like, the little charming interactions that they have. And then his dead friend shows up, and they make jokes about things. Like, it's weird.
Right.
So, kept her attention. It's a good movie.
Nice. Cool.
Thanks so much, everyone, for watching. If you haven't watched any of these movies we've talked about, I mean, definitely watch them. I mean, Tory has picked things that will be known in human history hundreds of years from now. Maybe American Werewolf in London will be. I really doubt the Dog Soldiers will be.
Man, I'm going to watch that tomorrow. So
they're important. You know, your picks. They're pioneers of their genres.
Sure.
I would recommend people to check out more of John Landis' other stuff. If you haven't seen Trading Places or Coming to America, those are fantastic comedies. Very well worth watching. And we will definitely be doing some more movie-themed podcasts. Everything's on the table: gaming, movies, TV, etc. So thank you so much for joining us in this first foray into the film world of topics. We hope to see you next time.
see y'all.